So, continuing my advice for men in their 20s, in part three today, we're going to talk about money. Money is important in today's capitalistic society and world that we live in, but the first lesson is that I refer to it as the means, not the way. Meaning, don't let money control the way you live or the way you feel about yourself. It's only the means to get by and to survive and to fit into the societal norms that we find ourselves in. But don't let it rule you. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it make you feel bad. Certainly use it as a weapon and a tool for yourself to get ahead and to feel successful, if that's the way you want to approach it. The way I approach money is I just use it as a mark for my productivity. So if I'm making money, I know I'm productive. So that's kind of a micro win on a daily basis for me, but it's the means, it's not the way. So let's just stay very focused on that. The next thing, and sorry, I'm going to look at my notes occasionally, is in your 20s, you need to have fun. You need to go out there and experience and see things because that's how you're going to grow and learn. And eventually, when you're in your 40s, like me, I don't go chasing the trends. I don't go chasing the fads because I saw it in my 20s. I saw it in my 30s. I've experienced enough to where now it just doesn't really move the needle for me like it used to. But when you're having fun, have controlled fun. And what I mean by that is, say, in part two of this series, I talked about not chasing trends. So be methodical, instead of buying the new Xbox that you might not need, but if you have a hankering to spend some money, go buy a guitar and maybe a little amp, because you're going to get potentially a lifetime of enjoyment out of that. And once you make that purchase doesn't really need a lot more inputs, maybe the occasional string change or tune up, but you're going to get a lot of mileage out of that, as opposed to going and buying that new iPad or whatever that new device is that's going to be obsolete. That guitar will not be obsolete in 2 years like that piece of technology will. So have controlled fun, be planned, be methodical about it, go in smart as a consumer, and that will stretch your dollar a lot further. The biggest thing probably is making a budget. So sit down, and the most important thing is, what are the things that you have to budget for in order to survive? Examples are going to be rent, fuel, insurance for your vehicle, the cost of maintaining your vehicle, just utilities, all the necessary things in order to shelter, to eat, all of those things. So budget that out, get a percentage, and let's just say, for example, that's 80% of what you make monthly. Okay, so you've got 20% left over for discretionary spending. So that's going to be your budget for fun. Well, what I want you to do with that 20% is half it. So now it's 10%. That's going to be your fun money. The other 10% you need to save. So let's just say that you're making $100 a day, if you're lucky enough to pull in $3,000 a month. So every day of the month you have $100. I want you to put $10 away, because real quickly, by year's end, you're going to have $3,650. So what do we do with that money? What we're going to do is we're going to invest it in a stock, the stock market. We're going to invest it in a CD or even a high yield savings account of some sort. Now, your typical stock market return annually is going to be around maybe 10%. Your typical CD right now is going to be 5 to 4.5%, and then your typical, high yield savings account at a bank or a credit union might be more like 0.5%. So it's pretty obvious, which one's the best choice. But what I would do is definitely start making your money work for you. And you don't have to do anything. You just have to keep adding to it, because then that's going to turn into compound interest. So if you choose the stock market, every 10 years, that's going to double. Okay, it'd take 20 years at this current CD rate. So that $3,650 quickly becomes, if my math's correct, in 10 years in the stock market, $7,300. And then that turns into $14,600. And then you do the math after that, $29,200, and we can keep going. So the sooner you start doing that saving and start making interest and compounding that interest, you're making money just for playing. And if you keep that 10% up by staying disciplined and motivated, you're going to have a lot more money at the end of the day than you realize. And that's going to come in huge for you, because you'll be able to throw that money at emergencies, at, children, at marriages, at home ownership, things like that, that you're going to start to need to think about as you get later in your 20s and definitely in your 30s. So let's make that money work for us. That's probably the most important thing, Where can you save, basically? So I think the biggest portion is that you can save money by budgeting your food intake. And I think the quickest way to do that is not eating out at restaurants. Restaurants by design are giving you the best quality of food they can that'll keep you coming back, but that also makes them a profit. So by design, you're getting decent quality, but you're certainly not getting the best. You go to a grocery, you can control your food intake. So if you need a couple examples, I have another YouTube channel called How To with Mr. Mike, and I give you some budget recipes on there. I have a great pasta recipe that costs about 50 cents a serving. I eat it 2 to 3 times a week. So just little things like that, you can save tremendously. Another one would be is just having one reliable fuel efficient vehicle. Don't get into the game of owning multiple vehicles, carrying insurance on multiple things. You don't need it. You just need one that's going to get you to and from work and to and from your fun experiences. So don't get into that trap right now. Save that for later in life. Another one would be side hustles. Get you a trade. Go on YouTube like you are now and start to look into plumbing, yard work, electrical, any sort of trade that is always in demand. You can do that for a minimal amount of time per week, maybe a couple hours, and make you a couple $100. It will always be in demand, especially with the older generations. They need help, and you can be there to help them. You have the energy right now to do that. So those are a couple tips to save money and to add to that 10% and make it more. I mean, you do the quick math. If you can save $30 a day, you're going to be over $10,000 a year, and real quick, you're going to have a chunk of change working for you. We got into CDs and stocks. That is very important, again, for that interest and compounding interest. So definitely want to get into that as soon as possible. Even when it dips and dives on you, it's very important to get in early, because traditionally it always stays on a flat line and always grows. So just to reiterate, that is paramount to your success, because it's money that's working for you without you even thinking about it. And then the last thing I would say is the biggest goal is home ownership. with that money you've saved up. So say you were 20 and you took this advice and you saved and saved and saved, and by the time you're 30 you might have $50,000. Well, that could go towards the down payment. It might not be 20%, but boy, it'll get you a decent starter home. Home ownership is different from any other possession because a home typically increases in value. So say, for example, the home that I live in that I paid for I could rent this for $2,200 a month right now. My mortgage payment, even at 6 to 7% interest rate on homes right now, would be around $1,700 if I'd put 20% in on a 30-year mortgage. So you're instantly saving $500 a month. I mean, I know guys that live in a 2-bedroom apartment right now for almost $1,400, $300 more a month, and they would be on their path to owning a home. So really think about home ownership early. It makes sense, and it is a investment in not only your future, but it's an investment that will always grow. Your vehicle will depreciate. You know, a lot of your possessions will depreciate. So it's very important. You might not think it's possible, but it is. Trust me. In states like Tennessee that I live in, they have programs to help you where you can put in 1% and get yourself into a down payment. You'll have a higher interest rate, but boy, you're not a renter. You're going to be a homeowner. You can always take out loans on that home. It's money that will work for you. And I think the biggest thing I need to tell you is, with the means and way, is that money's great, but don't let it rule you, like I said. But when you have an emergency, whether it's health or a vehicle breaking or just life getting tough, money's great. You can throw it at the problem. So I hope this helps. As always, take care of yourself. If you're not, start now. I've noticed I haven't got much feedback or comments on my first 2 videos, and I just want to encourage you. I'd like to hear from you. Any specific questions or any, specific advice, I can direct message you. I can give you any feedback, and I need to hear from you on if these are helping you, if my advice is, breaking through to you. I'd really appreciate the likes and subscribes to my channel or recommending it to your friends. I think this is sage advice for anybody. And it's difficult. Like I've said in my other parts, there's a war on you right now. You're at that age where you're being punished for past discretions that aren't your fault, but you can do this. Be confident. We'll get you through it. That's why I'm making these videos, to give you some hope and advice in order to grow. So take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you.